Hey team, meet Skimpies, the organic cotton undie made like a liner. Skimpies are for all of us who love going commando but can't quite pull it off like we used to. You just pop Skimpies directly into your pants, press firmly, and it's like you're wearing underwear without the gnarly panty lines. No PFAs, no synthetics, no irritation. Just clean, breathable, organic cotton where you need it most. Created by Ben Devlin, inspired by her own journey as an absolute babe who wanted to live that commando life, but without the UTIs. Go to skimpies.com to get started. Every peach deserves its day, and Skimpies is here to help make it happen. Skimpies, we just want to be in your pants. Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. Did you always know you wanted to be a parent? Truly want to be a parent? Now that we're more than 70 episodes into the pod, chugging toward 100, I think you'd be surprised by how many people hesitate before they answer that question. In fact, I'd say more hesitate than don't. That's not counting the group that felt pretty confident they didn't want to have kids, and then something changed that flipped their script. It's not that people don't love their kids. Can we just assume that people love their kids when they're talking about how it's all so hard already? That would be great. But I think many people feel like having kids was the option, something they just assumed would happen rather than something they proactively chose. It was just what society had laid out for them. Sort of like how at a time getting married was a given in a way that it isn't anymore. Sure, for some people they knew they wanted to be parents, but even still they continue to be blown away by all the unknowns that come flying at you fast with each new phase of parenthood. This week's guest, when I initially said I wanted to interview her for the pod, was pretty sure I should not interview her. She said, I regularly tell people not to have kids, which obviously made me want to talk to her more. Because the fact of the matter is, we live in a time where there is choice whether or not to have kids. It is a choice. And there isn't a right answer on whether or not to do it, how you do it, when you do it, no matter how strongly you feel about your own experience. It made me reflect a lot on what advice or perspectives I've given over the years on whether or not a friend should have kids. People, naturally ask when they're trying to decide what their family looks like to them. I don't know if I would answer the same way that I may have answered before. There's all these funny memes on the internet of people sort of in a drunken haze talking about how everyone should have kids because they have kids, even though they look kind of miserable. Those memes always make me laugh, and it is kind of true. I feel like in some stages of parenting, we all sort of look at each other and we're like, yeah, let's have more, let's do it. It's like a blood oath to the end, even though everyone's kind of having a hard time. So I do want to know, all of you, please, answer on the Instagram post for this episode or in the comments on the show notes. What do you say when somebody says to you, I'm trying to decide if I should have kids, or I'm trying to decide if I should have more kids? What do you think? How do you answer in a way that actually makes sense for that other person? How do you weigh up the pros and the cons? How do you talk about it with other people? Because it is such an insanely personal choice. And how lucky are we that we live in a time where we actually do get to have that choice? The person who got my wheels turning on all of this question of how we talk to other people about having their kids, whether or not to have kids, is Trinh. Yen is co-owner of Pipit Restaurant in Pottsville in New South Wales, Australia. Pipit has received stellar reviews, including retaining 2 hats from the Sydney Morning Herald's Good Food Guide. It was a finalist for Time Out Food and Drink Awards Best Destination Venue category, and their head chef, Yen's husband and co-owner, NOMA alum Ben Devlin, has earned a Global Knife for excellence on the Global Best Chef list. In addition to her work on Pipit, Yen is the creator of Chef Widow Club, a project that is equal parts blog, illustration, book on what it's like to date and maintain relationships with people working in hospitality. She's an illustrator, a designer, and a strategist, and she pulls no punches talking about navigating the parenthood piece while also running a family-owned business. Enjoy this episode. Mind the bits of ambient noise here and there, sorry, it's the virtual closet, and check out the show notes for such good stuff, including Bluey and Brisbane content. What gets better than that? Enjoy. I'm very happy to be talking to you from the virtual closet. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with little Yen and get to today.
Sure.
Are you ready for this journey we're going to go on?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Sure.
You do have some distinctions among guests, one of which is we've never had a twin on the pod. So I'm excited about that because we're going to talk about like what it was like growing up. How did your parents parent you? When did you start realizing you were into like illustration and art? And obviously you have this sister who's uses a totally different side of her brain in her work. So we have to talk about how you kind of cultivated your interests and all that stuff. And it starts with when we're little kids, I think. And then we're going to get all the way to today. So we're going to kind of I'm going to ask you about when you met Ben. What was that like? What do you guys fight about? And we're going to get into all of it. Are you ready?
Yes, sure.
Okay. You're like, God, Carrie, why did I say yes to this? The other distinction is you're our first Australian. So you're representing a whole nation right now.
Yeah,
no pressure.
No pressure.
Okay, so you were born in Brisbane?
Mm-hmm.
And your parents were relatively newish immigrants to Australia, right?
They came in 79, so a couple of years.
Pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Pretty fresh. And your older sister was born along the way, right?
Yeah. So she's named Bintan because she was born on Bintan Island, which was a refugee camp in Indonesia.
And I don't know if the stereotypes of immigrant parents is universal. Like here, I feel like there are a lot of stereotypes of what it's like to be born to immigrant parents, like a lot of expectations about what kind of jobs you're going to do, what work ethic looks like, what discipline looks like. Are those universal or is that just an American thing?
No, I think it is universal for sure. I don't think we recognize their story when we're kids. You know, they're just your parents. But like, it is crazy that my mum was pregnant, got on a boat, had a kid. Like that's insane. And that's just not the kind of person that I relate to her as. Like, she's just my mum, and she's actually quite not that assertive sometimes, or like, you know, it's quite quiet, or like not this kind of like fierce, I'm gonna get on a boat kind of person. So it's their story's crazy, really.
Do you talk to them about it now that like you are an adult and you also are a parent? Have you guys talked about it at all since?
Not really. I mean, it kind of felt like growing up, either we didn't know about it, but also it just felt a bit like you couldn't ask about it. Like, it's very traumatic. I remember that sort of time when I did come home from New York, and I was kind of a little bit interested in just sort of exploring my own thing. And I did sort of have some conversations around that time with them, but for most of my life, it just felt like it was a very hard time. Why would they want to talk about it?
Yeah.
It's trauma. So, but I don't...
It's very polite.
Yeah, I don't, but, so no, I probably don't know the full, I mean, I know the story. I know that they tried a couple of times, they were picked up by pirates, like, it's a story. But I don't know all the details of what that would have felt for them. You know, they did it because they had to. Obviously, a lot of people fled for a reason. Yeah.
And does it feel like, you know, now that you do have the perspective of you have one kid or two?
One.
So now that you like have the perspective of having your child, do you see like any of the things, like were they very strict? Were they about curfews, or were they just like be free? Like, what was the sort of the ethos in the house growing up?
I mean, I definitely like the migrant experience of being focused on your education and being very disciplined and like going to school, going to university, like getting a professional job. That was always really drilled into us, and that was, we didn't go to do things like sleepovers and didn't always get to go on school things or do extracurricular things, but in hindsight I think that was also just about money as well. Like, sure. I didn't recognize that as a kid, but you know, we didn't do heaps of stuff. We weren't like going on holidays heaps and all that kind of stuff. So there was always, this feeling of having to work and study and those sort of things. And I mean, I probably carry that through with Penny as well. I want her to be a smart child doing well, but I don't think I'm as strict, really.
Yeah.
How
old is she now?
She's only 7, so I don't think we're really at that point. But
soon, though, I feel like I guess now, at least here, it's like sleepovers have become out of fashion. Now everyone does the sleep unders. Is that a thing there?
No, I haven't heard of it.
I guess, like, the research says that sleepovers, like, lots of bad shit happens at sleepovers for kids. And so now there's this idea of having kids do sleep unders, which is, like, they get in their PJs, they have dinner, they do dessert, they watch a movie, they, like, get to stay up late, and then the parents pick them up for the actual sleeping part. Okay. So they're not actually sleeping over. But I feel like, I don't know what age that starts, like 9? It's coming for you, Yen.
Yeah.
You have that to look forward to.
I don't know if I'm aware of how their parenting has influenced mine, but surely it has.
I'm sure it has. And the other thing that we're very interested in here on the pod is birth order and how birth order defines you. So first of all, who came first, you or Fong? Who came out first?
Well, I did. So it was a cesarean. So I think technically I was just pulled out first. So yeah, I've grown up thinking I am the older twin.
Yeah. Was that ever part of I have nephews who are twins, and I feel like it's often will come up and be like, well, I am older than you. When you guys were kids, did you ever pull that card on her?
No, not really. No.
You're like, I am 60 seconds older than you?
No.
But would you say Binton, I think one of the strongest sort of stereotypes is eldest daughter energy? Is Binton like very much like an older sister, sort of like very organized, very on top of everything? She's like telling you guys what's up. What's the dynamic like between the three of you?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember growing up where sometimes, it's 2 against 1 occasionally, right? But yeah, she was definitely the older sister who cleared the pathway, right? She was the one who like challenged my parents on like, I don't know, dating, getting a car, all the teenager stuff that then, we didn't need to deal with. So I think she was definitely that eldest daughter thing.
She was the family freedom fighter,
Yeah. Sorry, it's dumb, but I think of just like the Taylor Swift song because she talks about this, like the new one that comes up, and it's like, oh yeah, that's totally being productive. And it's funny. I remember being told by one of Biden's friends how like I was on some holiday with her, and her partner sort of said, oh, she's so protective when you're around, which I don't always see, but like other people observe her being more protective when, so I'm sure that happens with all. That older sibling thing.
The older sibling thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, growing up as a twin, do you feel like, did your parents dress you the same when you were kids? Like, were you wearing matching outfits and shit?
I don't remember it so much, but it's in photos. So there are like Christmas photos and like where all 3 of us might be wearing something. I don't really remember it growing up as choices. Or being annoyed at, they're wearing the same thing as I am. But there's photo evidence of it.
Yeah, and you kind of sound like me. Do you not remember your childhood very well?
Maybe not.
I don't. I definitely don't. Like, I have a terrible memory. So there's, like, I don't remember a single teacher's name, for instance. Whoops. Except for, like, maybe 1 or 2. You're giving me that vibe.
I remember preschool. I don't think I remember much earlier.
Nobody remembers earlier.
I don't know.
If you remember earlier, like, that's, like, some crazy shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much we're meant to remember.
But do you feel like growing up as a twin, like, for instance, now I know the guidance is, like, you shouldn't put twins in the same class at school. Were you guys split up, or were you together?
we were always pretty together. Yeah, Penny's got some twins in her class, and they've got split up. It was probably only till high school when we started to choose our own subjects that we became very more split in choosing our own interests, having different classes. But through primary school, it was pretty much always together from memory.
And do you feel like you guys were really different people from the jump? From, like, you know, the time that you have memories. But, like, do you feel like you were always sort of the creative type and Fong was always sort of, what do we call her? Law-oriented, detail-oriented, analytical?
Yeah, but I think we always had some sort of shared interests, so I never felt that different. So, yeah, certainly professionally and how we work from high school into university and stuff, you see that a little bit more. But I think we kind of liked the same TV shows and the same music or whatever. It didn't feel like we were very different. That's not my feeling. That's not my feeling growing up. No, I don't think so. But we had 2 sets of twins growing up. No, 3 within our sort of primary school thing. And everyone had different dynamics. Like, some just would not get along with each other, and some were looking, and I think it's because we weren't identical as well. So I think we were never compared. I think the twin thing is, if you're identical, you're constantly getting compared. And that's probably when you see more conflict between twins. Just as a general observation. And so I think because we weren't identical, we didn't get compared heaps to each other. It didn't feel like, we had much conflict in that sense.
I mean, to this day, I think she's one of your biggest cheerleaders in the whole wide world. So clearly you guys have, like, a very special, they say twins have a special bond. So.
Yeah, I don't think we have it in that telepathic way, like, I know that she's feeling pain, where is she, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's like you grow up with somebody who's always your best friend, right? Like, and you get to hang out with them and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if that we've always had that. I mean, obviously, like, biologically, there's something in that. Yeah. You're deeply connected with this other person.
But, like, when I think about the prospect of having twins now as somebody who has kids, I'm like, I don't know how your mom did it. I don't know how your parents did it.
She didn't know either. She didn't know. I guess there was different, like, screening things at the time.
Wait, what? Yeah, she didn't know until you were coming out?
Yeah, that I don't think they knew. Well, I mean, maybe they did. Well, they knew later on. But it was like, I feel like the screening processes and stuff were different. And
sure.
But also, I loved being a twin. I had a thought of, like, it'd be great to have them until the reality of parenting is like, oh, that would be horrible. But I know some friends who have had twins. And I think she said it best of, like, she had twins first. I think it'd be different if you had a first baby who wasn't. Anyway, she's like, you just juggle because you just have to, and you don't know any better. Like, if you're a parent to twins, you run with it and make it work. So she just doesn't know any better because she's just had twin boys. So, and I thought, that's what my parents would have done. You're just dealing with it. Like, that's also parenting. You're just making that up.
You are literally just constantly figuring it out.
I have to check with my mom. I'm going to check with my mom. But my feeling was that, she didn't know. Or she didn't know for a long part of it.
And I can't figure out, like, do you remember, did they have help growing up? Like, I just think about when, like, for my mom, there are 3 of us. There was definitely more affordable childcare available than there is now. So I think she just, like, had more help around and more family around. Like, I just think that things are a little bit trickier now.
We didn't have family here, so because I mean that's how we do it now, grandparents. And so I think at one point our granddad was over, but he was very old at that point. So I don't remember any parental, like, other family help. We had neighbors, and there was like the migrant community, so I do remember being at the neighbor's house because they had kids our age, and there was a bit of that.
There's a big Vietnamese community in Brisbane.
Yeah. But I also just remember being home alone younger than. I remember Ben and looking at us, and it must have been, I don't know, maybe she was 8 or something. Like, I mean, I don't know. It could be different, but it just felt much younger. You were just left home younger. You came home, they were working, we came home from school, and maybe they just weren't there.
What were they doing for work?
At that time in our first house, they were just working in factories. So, which was nearby, but, and I don't really remember the hours, but, let's assume it's 9 to 5. There would have been a period of us coming home from school and they weren't there.
Do you have this latchkey term there?
Yeah.
So you were latchkey kids.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny now, because I guess following Biden's kids are kind of coming to that age, whereas, like, they're not leaving them home alone. So it's not like the principal, they're not like, oh, it's fine, we did it as kids, therefore I'm going to do. So maybe, like, parenting's a little bit different now, but yeah, it's, I think they haven't done that for their kids at that age, 8, 9.
Yeah, like, our whole generation is not doing that. There's this thing of, like, we're struggling to give kids the independence that we had because we're scared of bad stuff happening to them in the real world. Yeah. And paradoxically, like, kids are also on Roblox and, like, online doing shit where there's all sorts of things that we aren't aware of, and that's, like, they're sitting next to us on the couch. It's a very confusing time. Like, my husband, even sometimes, I'm like, you have to let him walk down the block in front of us. Like, we can literally still see him. He has to be able to just walk to the corner.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, Penny, some of her friends catch the bus to school, which would be great. But I'm like, I don't know what age she's cool to catch the bus. I mean, can't cross the road by herself yet, so maybe I'm a bit funny about that. But, I mean, she could. She's done it with... Well, her friends who do it have an older sibling, but
right.
The motion of, like, getting her on a bus by herself, I'm like, I don't know what age that is.
I know, and it's impossible to know, and I feel like every kid is different as well with what they're able to do, but I do know that the rare instances where we do let him walk down to the corner by himself and we're watching him the whole time, he comes back with such bravado and confidence for having done it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I know it's good, and also it feels scary. Did you always know you wanted to be a mom?
No. I would say no. I never really felt... I know... Well, compared to other people who I have seen be very clocky and express it a lot and, like, know from a very young age that they want it. Like, no, never been that person. I think I always wanted the idea of getting married and having kids, but I wasn't really attached to it either. I would also be happy not to have kids. I think Ben really wanted to have kids, and that's kind of probably what nudged me.
Me neither. I was kind of similar. And and as a consequence, like, I never really thought about, like, well, what kind of mom do I want to be? I was so focused on my career and I still am, like, what I want to achieve professionally.
Yeah.
That, I think, part of the genesis for this podcast was how at odds sometimes those things can feel, like the job of being a parent and also still trying to pursue these things that I'm really passionate outside of that job.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Like, I openly tell people to not have kids. Like, anyone who's not having kids, fully support that. Like, I get that. You don't want to say, like, it's not like I don't love Penny, but, like, yeah, I mean, life would be just so different. And it's an unpopular thing or to say that you don't want to be a parent. Like, or it's hard to say that. But, yeah, it's like, it's a bit overrated, motherhood. I don't gush over it like other people do. And, like, I don't have that feeling that I see in other people.
Well, some of it is also, I think, like, now we're in this stage where it can be really performative, where, like, like I often say, when my kids came out both times, I didn't immediately fall in love with them. I was like, hi, my name's Mom. This is your name. Nice. Like, I've never met you before. It took me time to like build that relationship with them. And I didn't have that like movie experience, right? Of like crying and being like, this is my baby. They're here. The universe has answered. Like, it took me time, and I'm obsessed with my kids. They're awesome. Like, it's a really hard job, and I'm happy I'm doing it. And also, I don't often feel like my experience is mirrored in what we see in like social media or popular media, TV, whatever. And so it is a little bit tricky, but I don't think that all people out there having kids are constantly thinking about their kids, and I think that's okay.
Yeah.
And probably healthy for their kids.
Yeah. I don't know. She, from a young age, partly it was just to work, but like she was in daycare pretty young. She was with grandparents. Like, I don't mind delegating her to other people, and, you know, whereas, you know, there are other people who are they're with their kids all the time. They're not putting them to daycare. They want them to be at home, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I definitely outsource her to other people, and I don't feel bad about that.
Well, I mean, what a gift that she has. The grandparent piece is huge. Like, that is a huge gift to give a kid. That relationship is massive, especially if you have helpful grandparents, which it sounds like you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents come pretty much every week from Brisbane down, which is like an hour drive for them. And Ben's mum's up here now. She was previously somewhere else and moved back kind of to the region. And yeah, we couldn't do it. Because weekends were like, the restaurant's open on the weekends. We're needing care on the weekends. And
we need to get to the restaurant. But wait, first, before we get to the restaurant, we have to get through, you had a whole ass life before the restaurant. Yeah. Lest we forget. Illustrator, designer, all around creative, doing super interesting projects. Like, I remember when you were doing stuff, was it for the city of Brisbane that you were doing like stuff for? You were doing like municipal communication type stuff. Remember?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. My career, my CV's all over the place, but yes, I did work a lot for government. Originally doing town planning, which was great. Like, out of school. Well, going back, like originally, actually out of school, I was always interested in art and doing creative things. I did do visual arts as a degree, but yeah, I did it for 6 months, and it was like, what's the job you're going to get out of this? Which maybe is back to that migrant parenting, get a real job. And at that point, it's like, you're going to be a starving artist or you're being an art teacher. That was kind of what this uni course was showing me. I mean, at the time, now that I'm in graphic design, I feel like, I could have gone that way with that course. Just I wasn't aware of that, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was this point of like, go get a real job. So I then changed to town planning, which was my second choice out of high school. And that was great. I was working for the city and those sort of things. And I guess that was an interest in architecture as well, which was also very creative and form and design and all those sort of things. But I also got really frustrated with the scale. Like, planning a city takes 20 plus years. It's very complex policy, and everything just took so long. Some of the stuff just being built in Brisbane now, I saw as ideas way back, 20 years ago. Like, it takes a lot of time to build any infrastructure. So I got pretty frustrated with that, but got more involved in community engagement and that sort of stuff, which was, communications, and ultimately bringing me back to graphic design of like, you have to visually show and communicate plans and ideas, and how do you do that? So in the end, I did end up leaning towards graphic design out of that, because it was nice to make a poster and just be done with it. You could create it, you could put it out in the world, and so it was such the polar opposite of long strategic planning stuff. So, I think all designers probably do that as well. You see architects who want to do furniture design or whatever it might be, you know, because it's all about scale. But I also do believe design is essentially all the same, no matter what. And so I guess I'm just applying that principle to different scales. Is kind of how I've reconciled my career. It could be a poster, it could be a city, it could be a project, it could be a precinct. So I think it's all the same. Could be a restaurant. Could be a restaurant.
Now, when does Ben enter the picture?
That was 2000. So yeah, it was after New York. It was when I came home. Must have been 2010, 2011. I can't remember. Around that time. And I think I came back. So backtracking, was overseas in Toronto doing design. Had always wanted to live in New York. It's just this romanticized view of watching too many movies about it, and it was like the best city. And from a design and town planning point of view, it was where things were happening in a totally different way. So it was the era of like the High Line was coming up, and that's just a huge community driven thing, and we just weren't seeing that in Australia, how they managed parks, so all that stuff, like all the cool stuff was happening there, as well as just, you know, years of romantic comedy movies that just made New York look like it's the place that you find love and life, and it's, you know, awesome. And that didn't work out for visa and job reasons, so I kind of came home going, ugh, a bit lost, and what am I doing, and all that sort of stuff. But I was also at the time very much like, I guess I must have been around 30. I was around 30 and not really dating and all that, but I was very clear at that time of just being a bit better at what was stopping me in the past. And I guess, yeah, I met him at the time where I was very open and better at being vulnerable and, you know, just, yeah. So we met online, and then we were talking about cities. Like, he had been in Copenhagen, I'd won a scholarship to London, and I was thinking about going to Copenhagen, and we were just talking about Europe. That's kind of how we initially connected.
Did you have any preconceived notions about, because he was already a working chef at the time,
yeah,
right? Did you have any preconceived notions about what dating a chef might be like?
No, didn't have any idea. I wasn't a foodie. I didn't know anything about that world.
So he had already been at NOMA by then.
Yeah, so he'd just come home from it.
But that kind of didn't mean shit to you because you're not in that world.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I would have been like plotting, losing my mind. Oh my God, NOMA. It would tell me everything about Renee. You were just like...
No idea.
Which I'm sure was like, for him, kind of nice, honestly, I'm sure.
Yeah, no idea. And in hindsight, yeah, I knew Copenhagen for its public transport and all the urban design things, and like that's what I was talking to him about.
Tivoli Gardens.
Yeah, so it was, yeah, their public transport system. That's what I knew the city for. Like, and actually, it was interesting. Like when he articulated what about that city, I've always thought that, you know, town planning makes cities really boring, and but the language around cities, I think the way that he described that city, it was like, yeah, on the same page of how you see the world, and like what I had read about it as a city, he just articulated it back to me, kind of thing. So, you know, what makes places livable and all that kind of stuff.
You fell in love over urban planning.
But not specifically that. But yeah, that's how we initially kind of met. But yeah, it was probably just at the time where I was just like super open and honest, more than I had ever been. And it clicked really fast. And so I remember it was around, I was turning 30. Because I had this list of 30 things to do before I was 30.
Ooh.
Which was, I don't even remember where I got that from. But that was one of our second dates. It was like this bar, and it was just stuff around the city. Like, oh, I've never been on this Ferris wheel that's on the city. I've never been to this bar. And one of them was actually going to this restaurant that he had worked at, which I didn't even know about, which was probably pretty funny in hindsight. But yeah, I was just not of his world.
And now you obviously very much are of his world. So at what point did you guys decide to open the restaurant? Like, how long into being together did you decide to do this restaurant together?
So in Brisbane, we were doing things like pop-ups and stuff like that. So I think and that's a bit of my design background of like, I was doing a lot of pop-ups for urban placemaking sort of things. So I guess I had nudged him along the way to do some of those. So we were doing and working on that for a little while. And that's probably when the idea of, well, he always wanted to open his own place. But that was probably the first foray of us testing ideas and building a brand and putting ideas out there. He left his Brisbane job to open a restaurant with someone. And that partnership kind of fell through. And that was, at the time, building on the concept of what we were doing as pop-ups, which was a bakery, to make it into a real kind of cafe. So when he'd left his job to do this thing, and this thing fell through, and so he ended up going to Japan and then getting headhunted for this job in Cabarita, which is down where we are now. And so taking on this job and stuff just felt like it kind of probably put our plans a bit backwards of like, we were going to open something. And then that job, which was meant to be 6 months, ends up being like 4 years. And so I think we didn't really... So yeah, for these 4 years, there was always this, will we open this, will we not? And then at a certain point, it was other partnerships that kind of happened, came through, waiting on people, not waiting on people. It just kind of got to the point, it's like, we're either doing this or we're not doing this. And he was... I'd like to think that people are strategic, and I try to tell my team, you try to be strategic and you do all these pop-ups and you build brand and you put this thing. But at the end of the day, I think when you're making big moves in life, it's often that you're pushed, or you're just like, I'm so sick of this other thing, I'm just going to go jump and do this. Or so we're trying to be strategic, but I think it was also a pretty emotional choice of like, if we don't do this now, we're never going to do it. Or it was very stressful, his job. It's like, I have to leave this.
Now, in those 4 years, was that the genesis of the Chef Widows Club? Like, when did that kind of start? This idea, like illustration project, which is really cool, but just this idea that like being with somebody who's in hospitality, specifically like, you know, in a kitchen, means that you never fucking see them. Like, if you're dating a chef, they're not spending Valentine's Day with you. They're not spending New Year's with you. They're not spending maybe even Christmas with you, because that's when stuff's happening.
Yeah. So the Chef's Widow project as an illustration thing happened around COVID. But it actually was a blog way back when. Like when I had the domain, it came up as a blog probably, it must have been in Brisbane. I don't know when. And originally it was pitched as a panel idea. So that was early on in the relationship. I can't even quite remember, but it was also about having kids also, which is sort of interesting that it's kind of like, how do people have kids? What is the future of this thing when the prospect is you're raising a kid by yourself? And like, so there was a little bit of like, where is this relationship going? How do other people even do this? And so it was trying to find other people. And at the time, there was probably some articles or some things floating around, but you just didn't know who these people were. And you still sort of don't. Like, you know a restaurant, you know a celebrity chef, but you don't often hear about the partners.
Yeah.
And how they're even making it work. So, yeah, I guess it was coming from a point of like, oh, this is really hard, and who else is out there? So that's probably when I was interested in the topic. But I didn't really start finding others until it became an illustration project idea, which was after so throughout my whole career in public projects, it's, you're building a roadway. There's negative people all the time. I was okay with negative feedback. But when it's your business and, like, the online stuff and everyone has an opinion about your restaurant, like, I don't think I was really prepared for that at all. And it did come at a point where it just felt like such a personal attack, this particular moment, that it's just like, people forget that you're kind of human and that there's couples and people behind this business. And so I was just really annoyed. And I was like, there are people behind this business. There's a couple, there's families. And so that's where the illustration was like, just to try to say, there's people.
Humanize this. And also, like, I think it has to be said that what you guys have created and what you're doing isn't just like the mom and pop Italian shop down the street or restaurant down the street. This is like a really thoughtful, like, gourmet experience that people travel long distances to come to your restaurant. It is like a fine dining experience for a lot of people. And so that world especially, I think people forget that there are people behind it because they're so focused on the food and the experience that they're getting that they, like, forget. Whereas if it's like the mom and pop Italian restaurant and it's like Nona making the sauce and, like, it's just a different relationship. Whereas this is almost like
the expectations is different.
Yeah.
It's kind of more, but also I think what we get it from people who also don't dine. So we are in a regional area. So actually our guests are very positive because they've come and traveled and they value it. The negative stuff is from people who don't value it, and is often from locals who say, oh, you're too expensive or whatever it might be.
You're too bougie for us. Yeah.
Kind of. So we've had the whole mix, but the internet trolling thing seems to come from people who sometimes don't dine.
Should we put a sign up front? Bogans beware. Do not enter.
But I think it goes back to the culture of, like, hospitality. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone can get on Google and everything else. And, like, it's media landscape is all about reviews.
Yes.
We had a review the very first day we opened. Like, it's crazy. Not, who has that in any other job?
It's crazy. I mean, and when you think about, like, so when you mentioned, it's too expensive or whatever, it's like the margins for the industry are very thin, right? Like, the type of stuff that you guys are doing, the produce, the seafood, like, everything that's coming is genuinely very expensive in the first place. And then you have, like, a high labor cost because you're doing all of this, like, very detailed work and putting a lot of process into what you're making. And so, like, it has to be expensive to recoup your costs. But it's not like, I think there's this misconception that these, like, very creative chefs are making loads of money. And it's like, oh, it's still pretty precarious and it's still a family-owned business. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's actually not so much the food costs. I think it's actually labor. It's the staff costing that people don't get. Like, it takes some bodies to make it happen. Like, but I think media often talks about food costs because most people are in the supermarket and people understand that. But I would say as a percentage, that's not the main issue. But yeah, all costs are going up. Electricity, food and all that. But our percentages is mostly people. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for service.
Did either of you have experience in, like, managing big teams of people? I guess maybe, like, did either of you have that experience or, like, the business experience? So there's a whole business piece here.
Yeah.
That you don't get in, like, a public policy type office or necessarily in a kitchen.
That's true. And I've often heard that about leadership too, of, like, people who are good at their jobs end up in leadership positions, but they're never trained for it. And absolutely, I think that's what happens with chefs. It's not like they're going to some leadership course. They're just figuring it out. They're looking at other leaders around. I mean, we all do. We look at other leaders around us and who's the boss. Like, I think of the bosses that I really loved working with, and they obviously influence how I deal with people and all that sort of stuff. So none of us, Ben's trained more teams and worked closely more teams than I do. Previously, in my last role for the Commonwealth Games, I managed a team which was 2 people, and that's the biggest team I've technically directly managed and budgeted for, type of thing. In his previous job, he probably had 20 chefs or something. So he is better at that people side probably more than I am. But, and the same with the business side, my role in the business has probably changed in what it was started out to be. But I was just going to set up the books and I was pregnant at the time we opened. So
I was going to ask, okay, when does Penny enter the picture? Okay, so we're pregnant at opening.
Yeah. I heard back in the day, you should open a business. It normally takes about 2 years. So the life plan was like, open the business, 2 years, it settles down, then we'll have kids. That was kind of my timeline, which is probably also why I was in this sort of 4-year period where nothing was happening. I was kind of like, when are we opening this thing? Because it's kind of also pushing back the other decisions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was definitely, this thing is 4 years late. Whatever we're doing the original plan didn't happen. So I was probably pushing it along during that time of like, what are we doing? So it ended up being that I was pregnant at the same time. The restaurant and her were going to be open on the same day at one point in the project planning. But I had taken maternity leave from my council job and I was going to go back to designing, go back to an office job and all that. I'm a project manager working on public projects, which have an end date. And I get to the opening and that was my end date. That was the project done, Doesn't work like that. But I was going to like do the books and, whatever, do some small bits, but was never intended to be in it full time. And here I am full time in it. So I'm happy to do I like numbers and I like data. So I ended up getting really into the bookkeeping numbers, financial side of things. And I still do that. But that's not based on any business background.
Well, you just kind of have to figure it out, right? Like you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business owner. You just gotta figure it out.
Yeah, and so the initial, we had an accountant sort of team help, but really they're more technical. They don't tell you how to best do things. So
yeah,
I just kind of ran it like I run my own money, which was like I was pretty frugal and I really never really liked credit card debt and all that sort of stuff. So I was always just probably cheap with my money, which goes back to the migrant kind of upbringing, right? You're just like, you save and you don't waste your money. And so that's just what I also probably take into our business. How I deal with money at home is the same as I deal with it in the business.
Yeah, and can we talk about this though? You literally opened a business, this restaurant, and had a child at the same time.
She must have been, she might have been 6 months. Yeah, actually it's 5 months. She would have been 5. Yeah, her birthday's in January. It opened in May. She was 5 months at the opening.
But how were you doing emotionally during that time? This is crazy. And I imagine he's working crazy hours.
It's so weird. I don't even remember all of it. She was, things got a bit delayed because of the building approval. So he was working at his old job. We'd signed the lease. He was working his old job when she would have been born. He had maternity leave through his old work. The restaurant was still being built. My mum was up here helping, and that's just there's that sort of 1 month of confinement with Asian cultures so she was there for the first month.
Talk us through, for our listeners who are not Asian or haven't spent time in Hong Kong, what was the confinement experience for you? Because I feel like it's different for everyone. What did yours look like?
It was, that first month where your body's resting. I know there's some traditions you should only have certain foods and blah, blah, blah. I don't remember being too strict on that, but it was just help from my mum for meals and, yeah, mostly meals and, like, feeding and that sort of stuff, or, yeah, just being around. It's just a support network for the first month.
Sounds pretty nice.
Yeah. And then usually you have sort of like, yeah, a 1 month sort of ceremony, like celebration for the baby, that kind of stuff.
And were you like, I mean, as similar to me, you said you weren't necessarily like, I definitely need to have kids. So when Penny shows up and like, were you like, what the fuck is going on right now? Or, for me, I just, at 6 weeks, I remember like crying to my mom being like, I'm never going to be happy again. And she like had to really try very hard to not laugh in my face. 'Cause obviously she knew that like, this is just the beginning and it's hard. But like, I genuinely was like, I will never be happy again. What have I done?
I definitely, yeah, I think we all have moments of being super overwhelmed. So part of like the government health support here is that you get also a care worker who comes and interviews you. And I think that is a lot about picking up postnatal depression, because it's always asking about how where you're rating and blah, blah, blah.
Wait, yeah, someone came to your house?
Yeah, so it's part of the New South Wales healthcare system. They have, I guess, a community nurse person.
Yeah. For
the first, I don't know how long it would be, maybe say 8 weeks. And they come in and there is this sort of like this sort of depression check thing, as well as what do you need help on, like feeding or sleeping or whatever. You can ask this person questions. But yeah, the depression stuff was often very strong, and I can sort of see the policy around that. And so I remember not scoring great sometimes, but like not to be like, I was not deemed clinically, whatever it was. So
you were just a reasonable amount of miserable.
But I don't also remember the feeling. I remember feeling overwhelmed. I don't think miserable was quite the right word, but now that I look back at that, it's just all a blur. I think you just get into survival mode and you're just doing it, and I just don't even think you're thinking about it. Which is also like when people say, how'd you open the restaurant? I think that was the same. It was just like, I don't know, we just did it, because I don't think we had a choice, or we weren't thinking about it, we just did it.
And so now you're 7 years in, like what does the cadence of life look like with Penny, school, the restaurant hours, your hours, his hours? Like, what does it all look like now?
It trades Thursdays to Mondays. So we do close Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But yeah, you own a small business, and that's when I'm doing all my work. So they're our admin days, but we're pretty much always working in the business. Ben's there pretty much 7 days. I'm working at home. This is my home office. I will go into the restaurant when I am working service or doing admin things, but I'm not in there every day, and whereas he is. And we split things like the pick-up drop-offs. She's in after-school care a lot. She's with grandparents on the weekend. She's with grandparents if I need to work a night when I'm not normally working. Yeah, I don't know. That's the juggle.
And for her, is she like growing up around this restaurant? Like, what kind of eater is she? I have a really picky eater who likes to eat shredded cheese and white rice. Like, what's she up to? What's she eating?
Yeah, she doesn't have the expanded palate like a dad. I remember going to a restaurant, and they were like, yeah, there's this and I get asked all the time. They just assume that she's just eating every food and not a fussy eater, and her dad's a chef. She must eat everything. And they, sent out her all this food, and she just like, she was 5 at the time, and so she just wasn't that interested. And I would say that she's not as adventurous as people think she is, just because she's the kid of a chef.
I really appreciate you saying that, actually, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about like how much we can control our kids' like interest in their palates. Like during the pandemic, me and a bunch of other fucking crazy people who were bored at home all got obsessed with this baby-led weaning thing. Are you familiar with this?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like how to feed food, you know, how you feed your kid, how you expose them to things. And there's like one particular thing, which like listeners, don't come at me if you love solid starts. Like you can read my blog post on how I feel about those people. But like, it felt like this insane pressure to like get your 6-month-old to eat a fucking sardine. You know, it like this insane pressure. And so as a consequence, I have a pretty selective eater now. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think he was always destined to be a selective eater. But he also won't eat a fucking sandwich or mac and cheese because I never gave him one because I was too focused on feeding him sardines. You know, like it just, but I like when you hear for like somebody and like a chef's kid is a selective eater, it's music to my ears because it's just proof that we cannot force our kids, like they are who they are. You cannot force them to have an expanded palate, even if they have every opportunity in front of them, if it's not the kind of kid they are.
Well, it's also just like, as a parent, like she likes really raw, crunchy veg versus cooked. And she loves cucumbers. And so, yeah, I sometimes just give her cucumbers for dinner because I know it's easy and that's a win. And I don't feel like trying to force things on her. But I should. I feel like I should try to expand her palate and stuff. But I think it's partly just like, that's like not a battle I want to deal with today. And so I think partly it's the kids being selective. It's also I'm purposely not trying to expand her palate as much as I should sometimes. But sometimes we try to go, well, you have to at least try it, even if you don't like it, is kind of what we do at restaurants with her. It was funny, like we were on some trip to Thailand. It was a Michelin star place. They were so super friendly and gave her this fried rice that, you know, great level of service. And she didn't care, you know, like she doesn't care. She had, Ben sometimes has lobster, like really stuffed. She's like, nah, she don't care. Like,
yeah, of course not. I know. I would love to go to restaurants with my kids, and I know loads of people do, and they can, and their kid is up for it and great. But like my older one, the younger one still eats whatever, but the older one, it's just like that's actually just putting him in a really stressful situation because he's not going to eat anything unless it's white rice or a baguette. Or cucumber. I mean, he eats cucumbers 2 to 3 times a day. That's like a core.
Yeah, and I think it's also just like parents choosing places though, right? So yeah, Penny's the same. If it's got rice and bread, at least I know that she's eating something. So in terms of choosing, and you know, we are going to like a Diga station. No, we're not bringing her. Like that's just parents are making that choice to do that. I've actually found like we're pretty upfront that Pipit's, you know, an 8-course menu is not suitable for kids. We still get inquiries about it. We're very clear on our policies around kids. But yeah, I think it's really about some parents, some kids love it, some kids don't. It's more the sitting around as well. Like a 2-hour sitting for a kid's a long time, or you have to entertain them with something. Our holiday hack actually is wine bars. Places that have small snacky things. Because she kind of just eats and snacks like grazing a little bit. Wine bars is a good holiday hack. We can get it.
Kids, let's go to the wine bar, everybody.
Yeah.
Wait, so I was going to, with this before I forget. So, does she, like, when she's with your parents on the weekends, is she eating, like, any Vietnamese food?
Not so much, but yes, actually that is a good point of like, she probably isn't around a lot of Vietnamese food unless she's in Brisbane. Like I'm not cooking it so much. Ben isn't cooking it so much. So she is like a kid who doesn't like spring rolls. And I'm like, you're an Asian kid. You should like spring rolls. So there is a certain level of exposure around things. So no, she probably doesn't have as much of it.
I'll take the sprig rolls. You can send them here. I will eat them.
Unless, she's with our family or we're eating out in Brisbane and that sort of stuff. So,
can you explain to me why people call Brisbane Bris Vegas?
No, I don't. I don't really know the background of that.
What? Is it famous for being a fun place to go out at night? Does it have good nightlife? Does it have good restaurants? Is it just Australians being weird? What is it? What's the cachet with Brisbane?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's changed, and I think there is a great growing scene there, and obviously it's won the Olympics and all that kind of stuff. I think Australians just like making fun pun names, really. So I think
you guys.
But yeah, I don't actually know where it came from.
I do just realize, though, that you are married to an Australian who throws shrimp on a Barbie, literally.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. We don't actually serve prawns in the restaurant as a sustainable seafood thing. So, no, actually.
We're throwing lobster on the Barbie instead.
Yeah, we're throwing lobster on the Barbie.
Okay, so now that you're entering Penny's 7, now that she's like getting more into like school, like does she have homework and stuff?
Not so much at this age.
I don't know when it starts. 8, 9?
Not sure.
Not looking forward to it.
So she doesn't really at this point. But I mean, she's reading and writing and all that kind of stuff, which is quite amazing how much they do learn. She's teaching me things like, or I've forgotten about it, like about grammar and how they explain words and digraphs. I don't even know what that is until she taught me what that was, about how 2 letters make a sound. Like,
oh,
yeah.
So, I don't think I learned that. Sorry, Penny. I don't think that one came from me. And do you and Ben ever have arguments about either parenting or, I mean, you literally run a business together and raise a child together. Like, are you on the same page about everything, or do you have like the recurring gripes?
I think that, I don't know, when it comes to Penny, not really, but we have different approaches for sure. And sometimes if he's gonna like, it's just more about backing it up, really. So he was trying to teach her this lesson the other day about listening, and it was like he was not letting that one go, where I would have. But it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna support this where this is going. So I don't think it's a gripe. Sometimes our patience or our position on a whatever might be a little bit different. And that's often the case where one person has more patience for something than another person, really.
I get so sweaty when I have to back my husband on something that he's decided to care about that day, and I just have to like support it, and I just don't feel like it, or I don't want to, and I would much rather, if it was me, just like not make it a thing. I just get sweaty because I'm just like, I just want this to be over. I want to spend my time doing this.
It feels just kind of a bit like good cop, bad cop, right? Like, once, because she was then really upset with him, and then I then become the person to like explain it and calm it down a little bit. So, and I'm sure he's done the reverse. So you end up just sort of being good cop, bad cop. I think he is more, I guess I'm doing more bedtimes and dinners and stuff with her, and I sometimes, or the school pickup, I sometimes feel like I'm bad cop, or like I'm always, and he gets sometimes does like a full afternoon where they just go to the creek. So I do think he's like the fun parent, like he gets to, and I'm like, the bad cop more than he is sometimes.
Wait, how have we not, is Bluey popular?
Yep. She's not watching it so much, but yeah, amazing show.
I cannot believe we have not discussed this until this point. This might actually be the last thing that we talk about today. Bluey. So my husband is like, I mean, we love Bluey. We wish our kids don't really watch it anymore. But the dad, I think his name's Chili, right?
Bandit.
Or is that the mom? Bandit. Chili's the mom. Bandit is like always getting hurt, which my husband's always like, I don't appreciate that. He's always getting hurt. But he is also he's always the fun one. He's always doing the fun stuff.
Mm.
And I don't know if you remember the pool episode where, that comes up in my home several times a week. Because I'm always packing the bag, and he's always just like, well, let's go. Planning can be fun, guys. That's all I'd like to say about that. But I am glad to hear that Bluey is legitimately popular. It's like a popular sometimes, you know, when something comes over, you don't know if it's such a cultural touchstone in the place where it started, but it's huge here. I know every grown-up I know has cried watching an episode of Bluey.
I think also because it's made, my connection to it is that it's made in Brisbane, right? And so I love it for also the nerdy kind of urban design architecture side, because I recognize places in the background. And Brisbane looks like that, and the color and how they captured the place is amazing. So as a sense of place and what that does, like the museum is real, and I worked at the museum, and it's in one of the episodes, South Bank, like all the locations are real. The neighborhood that they live in. And so I think I loved it from that point of view, as well as, you know, great storytelling.
Yeah, and this might be one of the most important things that I learned today. I completely did not appreciate that, like, in my mind, where they live is, like, just a made-up fantastical place.
No. So the company is based in Brisbane as a production company, and it's funny because before it blew up hugely, my friend was working at Brisbane City Council. She actually got one of their illustrator teams to come in and talk about how they looked at place and architecture and landscape, because that's also what they were trying to look at, like character housing policy, and they got the Bluey team in to talk about how they did it, because that's what they do. They capture place. It's the colors, it's the vibe, it's the sense of architecture. So yeah, they're real places. I mean, it's abstracted.
Sure.
There's actually an Instagram Bluey locations or something, which is a Brisbane dad who is like, here's the drawing and here's the real life one. Like, they're real places. So
okay, I'm gonna put that in the show notes for people. But if Brisbane City Council isn't using Bluey as their come visit Brisbane campaign, like, they're missing a trick.
Exactly.
They would get more Americans over there than they would know what to do with.
Yeah, so they have, I think they've clued onto that now, like Queensland tourism and stuff. So they do have Bluey's World, which is a place that you can, which is their house, which is basically their house sort of set up, and you can tour and walk through it and that sort of stuff. So, and now that's sort of branded that as a destination as well as other things. But I mean, absolutely. It's a missed opportunity if Brisbane isn't using it. I mean, I'm sure there's actually some weird copyright thing about how much they can use it and license it. But yeah, there was Airbnb who did a bit of a activation where they made a house into Bluey's house, and you could visit it, and that was in a suburb that it was based on. But yeah, if you're in Brisbane, you know where these places are without the signage of it.
This is terribly exciting. Well, okay, I'm aware of the time. I just wanted to ask, how many Americans do you get at Pipit? Is it Pipit? Am I saying it right? Do you get any Americans traveling to come eat there?
Most of our international people are often expat Aussies, or like have family connection or something, like who are visiting the Tweed and the region because of family, friends, and that sort of stuff. So
well, maybe we're going to change that with this episode, because I'm going to put the restaurant link in the show notes. I'm going to find that Instagram account and put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And people can take their kids to do a Bluey extravaganza and then leave them at the hotel with a babysitter while they come do a 2-hour sit-down meal without their kids.
Yeah. Possible.
Is there, in terms of parting words, is there anything, you started the Chef's Widow project initially because you wanted to understand before you had kids how to do it. Now you are somebody in hospitality who is doing it with a child. Is there anything you would want somebody to know who is considering embarking on the same journey, who's already pregnant and or with child?
Well, yeah, I think that through the project, which was trying to find 100 couples, I did find it interesting that the same kind of concern had come up. There was somebody who was maybe thinking about kids, but one of the best pieces of advice that I found through that project was a mum who said it gives them great flexibility, that he's working night shifts and therefore he can do the morning and that kind of stuff. So that's what I appreciate that now too. Because I did look at going back to a 9-to-5 job, and I went for an interview and I sat there going, I can't go back to that. And it's the level of flexibility that hospitality, shift working, owning your own business, like if there's any benefit out of that, is like it does give you flexibility to be able to deal with parenting stuff. Like I can pick up Penny this afternoon pretty easily because I'm not in a 9-to-5 sort of job. So I think that is a positive aspect that people don't talk about. So
okay, there's a silver lining. Well, Yen, thank you so much. I had just a really nice time catching up with you.
Yeah.
Did you survive it? Are you okay?
No, it's fun.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at mutha, mutha.life for a daily look at all things mother. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mother Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.